Well, hey, everybody, we're glad to be back with you again. We are excited to have another new topic to help you with your business building and thinking through a variety of things that you can accomplish with your business, right? To be very purposeful with your business. So, David, I'm excited about this topic personally as a coach. And our topic today is the power of personal branding for a coach. And with this, when we're thinking about personal branding, coaching is very personal in general, right? Like you are the coach, right? And I've talked to even a lot of people in corporate spaces where I'm like, no matter what the banner is over your, building, no matter what's on your business card, in essence, you're the brand when you show up to any meeting, any conversation. When it comes to coaching, it truly is, the reality. So, what have you experienced, David, as you've thought about this idea that, you know, personal branding, what it is, and maybe what was your journey to kind of understand it more?
Well, I mean, it's one thing like you got to think about what do people think of when they think of your business? And for like there's two different things that go on into that. One is for like a small business, like most all businesses, like 98% of businesses are small business. Let's just be honest.
Right,
For every Walmart, there's 99 little
right,
shops all around it.
sure.
So
I don't think people think about that much.
right, exactly. So, but when you think about it, you're going to think about one of two things. You're going to think about the identity of the brand of that bigger company. Like, what do you think of when you think of Walmart? And
Low prices, guaranteed.
right, I think of cheap.
Yeah,
And that to me has goes both ways. Okay. So it can, because I've had times where cheap was good,
right,
and I've had times where cheap was not good.
correct.
Or I bought something like this is cheap. So that word, so it has like a mixed connotation, but that connotation is associated directly with the name and the brand.
Right,
Now, when you are a coach or you're an author or you're a speaker or you are somebody that is doing courses or being a trainer in an organization, that brand is you.
right,
And I've had, you got to understand when people think of your business, they're thinking of you.
right,
They're not thinking of a giant logo for some mega corporation. They're thinking of you, the individual.
right.
You represent that.
Yeah. Well, that's just what I was even having this conversation a little bit about this yesterday with some folks from a bank nearby. Um, they're all great people. I appreciate them, but honestly, at the end of the day, I don't care about the bank brand if I trust them. And I told them that, right? Like you guys are the ones that I want to do work with. You're the ones I want to help connect to other people. So it's like if I didn't trust them, I don't care about the bank name. I don't care about the institution itself because that's a nameless, faceless, lifeless entity. They're made up. These businesses or corporations are made up of people, right? So, like you said, Walmart, as an example, like you brought up, 30 years ago had even a different image than a lot of people think about Walmart today. Unfortunately for them, and then and so what happened was Target came in, and Target became more of an upscale, similar model. But people think, well, I'm not going to Walmart. I'm going to go to Target. That's where the nicer stuff is. Well,
Right.
it's in essence, it's the same business model, right? It's a department store. It's a place where you go and shop for different things. So brands, a logo even, right? And a lot of people think that a logo is the brand. That's not the full picture either of this, because it's what do you think about when you see that logo? What do you think about when you hear the
Right.
name of a person and their business, right? Like there's we've talked before, like there's great salespeople and there's sleazy, slimy salespeople, right? And so you think about if I mention a certain name to somebody, the brand, right, of that person is going to come to their mind, like whether it's trust, whether it's not lack of trust, whether it's hatred, whether it's love, whatever it is towards that person or that brand. And so today, folks, we just want to talk about why this matters so much, because the reality is this: your clients as a coach are not buying things the same way they may buy other products and services, because they're truly buying you. You are the product. You're coaching your investment in them, your model that you offer, that's what they're buying. And you have to work at building that brand to build trust. I actually had a younger guy yesterday, David, literally just asked me, he said, I'm in a networking group and there's a coach in the group and I like him. And he's like, but he wants me to connect him to like 7 different businesses that I'm connected to pretty directly. And he's like, how do you know if somebody's really good at what they do? He's like, I know him personally, but I haven't seen him necessarily at work. And so we had a conversation about how can you kind of vet people, because for him, he had a couple things going on. One, he wanted to make sure that guy's brand is consistent with his and good, but he also knew that his name, his reputation was on the line if he's going to recommend that coach to that organization. And so this whole topic is kind of, timely, just even with that example of what I heard yesterday was, how can I make sure? And I said, well, there's a level of trust and faith, obviously, you have to step out into to recommend anything or anybody. Right. And I said, sometimes I've had good experiences with people, but other people have had bad experiences with them. So I can't recommend those people anymore. No matter what they did for me, or I've had to say with an asterisk or a caveat, like this person did great work for me, but I know that they've also struggled with other people. So, that's a branding issue, don't you think?
Well, and as you're talking, I'm just sitting here thinking, branding really comes down to one thing. What is the emotional response you have when if I said the words to somebody, Chris McClure,
right?
Like what is the emotional response that they have? And that, it has to be somebody that knows you, obviously, because otherwise the emotional response would be nothing. I don't.
Yeah. There's if they have no clue who you are, it doesn't matter.
Right, then it's a 0. But there's always an emotional response tied to an individual like that. If you had experiences with them, because let's say that you were involved with some business or some coach and you did things with them, and then you had an experience with them which was just left a really bad taste in your mouth, and
right.
And you're just like, I do not trust him anymore.
Right.
And so if you came up to me and said, David, what do you think about so-and-so? I'm just going to respond to you with no.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say no.
Stay away.
Stay away. And why? Because my emotional response is I don't trust him.
Yeah.
I saw things about him that looked very, very dishonest and very shady and very questionable. And, there's an example, there was somebody who I followed on the personal growth side for a long time, and they had amazing content. The stuff that they put out was amazing. And I went to a live event of theirs, many years ago, and was pretty much disgusted with that person's behavior from the stage.
Wow.
It was terrible. I didn't even stay. I didn't even make the whole conference. I just stopped. Didn't even go to the rest of it because the behavior, not only from him, but from the other people that he had on the stage, was just bad. And the way that he was treating other people was bad. And I just sat there and thought, I don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
I don't want to associate with this person anymore. And that was it for me.
Yeah.
I never bought another thing.
Yeah.
I never enjoyed anything else. I never bought another book, and I didn't buy more books or products from him. I'm just like, now my emotional attachment to you.
Right.
Because again, that is what we do attach ourselves, even to leaders in our communities, in our society. We attach ourselves to them emotionally. Don't like them at all, or really like that one.
Right.
We get that emotional attachment and connection to it. That doesn't have to be strong, but it's still there. And if that emotional connection or attachment changes to a negative, that it doesn't matter how good the next product is.
Right. I had an experience years ago while I was at a conference, and it was a smaller venue, and the speaker had somebody I had followed, read his books and things, kind of similar to you for years, spoke and did a great job. He was great on the stage, but he got off the stage and I walked up with a couple of my friends that we wanted to ask him some questions because it was a small enough venue to do that. And he was so awkward and hard to talk to. I lost all sorts of respect from it. It wasn't like he was doing anything bad, like in your example, but it was like, I'm like, man, this guy can't even have a conversation. And I'm like, so my image of him was tainted, right? Like I'm going, and I realize sometimes people are really good on a stage, but they're terrible face to face. Sometimes people are great face to face, but they're not going to be good on the stage, or they have great content in your case, but they're not the type, they're not actually the people that you think they are when it comes down to it. So, folks, this is all why personal branding matters. And, David, one of the things that I remember when I was in my early 20s is learning leadership. One of the first books I ever read was John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Influence, or Leadership, rather. And he talked about the law of buy-in, that people buy into the leader, then the vision. And I think the same is exactly true. We can just change the words a little bit, right? People first buy into the coach, then the program, the product, the methodology. And so if people don't trust you, right, it is the know, like, and trust factor, right? If they don't know you, they can't trust you, obviously. But once they know you, once they've they've had a chance to have a feel for you, do they like you? Do they trust you? Because, here's the thing. When I first started my coaching business, I was certified in a program, and I thought I was just going to bank my business on the brand of that leader that I was following. And I realized very quickly people did not care. And we'll get into this a little bit later in our conversation, but people didn't care about that brand. They cared about me. Like, they were buying Chris. They weren't buying.
They weren't going to hire the other person.
Right. And so it was like, I could, and it wasn't that I, never tell people the certifications and the experiences and the training I've had now. I share that, but I also, it's so much of a footnote now because it doesn't matter to most people. You have to build credibility and trust, and you have to showcase your expertise, because really, if people don't trust you, they don't want to work with you, right? Like, because coaching is highly relational. I mean, David, you've talked about, your coach for many, many times about how, it was hard when he retired, right? Because you had such a close, trusting relationship with him. And did you care about all of his credentials and all the labels behind his name, or did you care about what he offered you?
I know, and that's just it. I mean, that's the thing that so many people, when they get started in coaching or helping, like, well, I don't have this credential, or I don't have that certification.
Yep. I cringe actually when I hear people saying, "Oh, I'm going to get another certification." I'm like, just stop.
Stop it. Just stop it. That's not what you need. You don't need more letters, after your name. That's not going to do you any good. And it's the same thing. I could have cared less what his credentials were.
Mm-hmm.
What I cared about was he knew me, he understood me, and he knew how to help me.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. He knew me well.
Yeah.
Because we had worked together for several years.
Yep.
He understood exactly what I was going through, because we had been through lots of different cycles of things.
Sure.
And he knew how to help me. He didn't try and force somebody. And then when he left and retired, I got put with a different coach who was a nice person, was a good person, but had an agenda. And was trying to force me into her agenda.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I'm like, you're not hearing me.
Right. That's not what I want.
That's not what I said I wanted. And so I did it for like a month or two or so. And I was just sitting there dreading the calls. And I'm going, I'm paying for this. And I'm dreading even getting on a call with this person, because they don't hear me, they don't understand me, and they don't know how to help me.
Yeah.
And this is a highly qualified coach. She was really good, but she didn't check any of those three boxes. So I terminated it, and then she called me and yelled at me. So I was like, yep, that confirmed my feelings all the way through. Yep, I needed to get out of this one. This wasn't good. So,
well, and once again, think about that. Now, if somebody said to you, "Hey, what do you think, David, about this coach? Would you recommend her to me?" And you'd be like, "No." Like, because here's the thing, folks, even if a coaching relationship ends, it can end well, right? Like, technically, we're not going to have a coach for the rest of our life that stays with us. Most likely, it's very rare, and as a coach, we shouldn't want people just be like beholden to us and held captive, and they can't feel like they can exist without us. I mean, yes, we want those people in our corner to help us, but as a coach, if you create that kind of a dependency, that's not healthy either. You want people to be successful with or without you. And so, but once again, that's at least my perspective as a coach, right? Like, there are others who would say something different maybe. But the reality is that situation, right? I mean, you literally in that few weeks had an extreme example of somebody who you truly trusted, who truly cared about you, your success, and wanted to help you with your goals, versus somebody who came in with an agenda, who thought, I'm going to force David into this box. And you're saying, that's not what I want. That's not what I need.
Right.
And so,
And if you know me well enough, you know that I'm way too contrarian to go into that box. So if you're shoving me into the box, the first thing I'm doing is finding a way to get out of the box.
right, you're trying to knock through the walls of the box.
Right. Get out. Where's the exit? How
Yeah.
do I get out of here?
But so folks, this is why this all matters. And so let's look at some key elements to personal branding, right? Because a lot of times, I have a good friend who, she's kind of in the early stages of, she's written a book, she's doing some speaking, she's trying to understand this whole business dynamic because that's not her background. And so, I've tried to encourage her, to help her think about some things. But one of the first things is that, who you are matters more than what you do with your prospective clients. It's another Maxwell, law of magnetism. Who you are is who you attract. And I actually wrote a leadership book called The Magnetic Leader, about this whole thing, because it's about the actions you take come from who you are. Your doing comes from your being. And so your character matters, your motivation matters. So what are your values? And when you share your values, right, don't hide your values, because even if somebody doesn't align with them, that's a great filter, right? For me, for you, David, I mean, we're men of faith. We take our faith very seriously, and that may not be for everyone, and we understand that, and that's okay. Doesn't mean we're going to be jerks to them. Doesn't mean that we need to be, spiteful if they don't want to work with us, because if that's a barrier, that's a barrier, and there's other people that can work with them. But the reality is our values are our values. And so when we talk about who we are as a human being, first and foremost, before what we do, then people start to go, you know what? Now, I even had a friend, years ago say, Chris, I don't exactly get what you do, but, basically I trust you. I believe that you're doing good things. I just don't quite get it yet. And that's when I had to realize how marketing matters. I'm like, well, I'm not clarifying that for sure. If that's what but this is a person who trusted me. So he would have recommended me as a person to people, but he was trying to figure out who are the people I should recommend you to based on what you do. But it started with the who, right? It started with who first before it went to the what. What have you kind of experienced when it comes to that side of that being before doing?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I have an example, honestly, from yesterday. So this is about as fresh as it gets.
Yeah.
Is, as I mentioned several times, I go to the gym. I've been going to the gym now for a number of years. I had a trainer that I worked with for a long time, and then he moved on, and he was going and doing in a different direction. So the last while I've been really doing things on my own, and I was really good with that.
Right.
Well, during my time at the gym, I actually had two trainers. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that. I actually had a trainer that I worked with for like 2 or 3 months when I started, the very first trainer, and he up and moved to Florida and took off. So I got transitioned to Matt, who was the trainer, who was the guy that I worked with previously, or for the most of the time. And so what ended up happening was, a couple weeks ago, I'm in the gym and I look up and there's this guy staring at me, and I'm going, but that guy looks
familiar.
He looks like Kyle, but he wears glasses. His hair is different. And I'm just kind of staring at him, and he's staring at me, and I'm going,
this is one of those awkward moments.
Yes, I'm like, is that Kyle? I'm like, so there's part of me that's like, that looks like Kyle. But then I was like, really? But then there's but he looks different. And Kyle's in Florida. Why would he keep me here?
Right.
Back at this gym. And then he gets up and starts walking towards me. And I'm like, son of a gun, it's Kyle. Like, he's back. And so we started catching up. We started talking. And, we always got along really well. And Kyle has an amazing gift for fitness and health and everything. Like, there's two people that I've met that just have absolutely blown me away with their knowledge and of skill and ability in health and fitness. And that's Dr. Pat Luce and Kyle. Wow. Those two are just like at a whole other level. And not that there aren't other people that are very, very good, but these two are like scary smart.
Yeah.
and what they do. And so he was like, "Hey, man, I'd love to do a free evaluation for you." And I'm like, "I know where this is going.
Yeah.
You want me back as a training
So
class?"
he's back permanently? Is that the deal?
Yeah, he wanted me to come do it. Like, okay, man, I just, if nothing else, I just want to check and see how you're doing. I'd love to do this with you because I can see you made a lot of progress. You're doing a lot of things that we weren't doing when we started.
He's like, David, I don't even recognize you. You're half the man I left and saw.
But no, well, you're a lot stronger than when I left because you started, you couldn't lift squat. Now you're actually lifting things.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we went through all this, and I just want to do that. And then I ran into him again on Monday, and he's like, "Hey, man, let's get you scheduled for that." I'm like, "Oh, fine." I'm like, "Okay." And I went into the gym yesterday going, nope, I'm not going to sign. I know what this is going to end up with.
Yep.
And I'm not doing it. And by the time we were done with that hour together, his credibility, his skills, I mean,
Broke down all your defenses.
Blew me. I had forgotten how.
Now, folks, you have to understand, this is a huge thing for somebody to be able to do with David Branderhorst. You are a stubborn Dutch man.
Hey, be nice.
Hey, you've said it. You've owned it before.
I do. I tend to go the opposite direction.
Right.
He tries to push.
This guy broke through, but once again, he broke through your defenses because of his expertise, right? Because
and his credibility and the trust that I have in him.
Yeah.
It's all the stuff that you've just been saying. So when you're saying all this stuff, now here's one too, is like, he had me do some like different things, and he's like evaluating me. He's like, just, he doesn't just have you do like a body weight squat. He has you put your feet close together so it's awkward. Have your hands over your head. He goes, "Now squat." And I'm like, going, "Really?" He goes, "Yep, this will show where all the things are that are wrong." And I'm like, "Oh, great." And he's like, "Yep." He said, "Dude, your hips are tight. Like your hip flexors, they're really tight. I can see it in the way you're doing this." He said, "Go get on the table." I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, so I get on the table, and he starts stretching me out on my hips out because they're just, he's like, "I could tell, man, I could see it. You're really tight in these areas." So he has me do these things, how trainers will get on, they'll like, all right, they'll grab your leg and they go like, on you. Crank and they like push. I'm like, okay, all right. Now we're gonna push, and now look how much farther I can push your leg back. I'm like going, well, don't break the leg off. But at the end of that, my hips felt the best that they have felt in forever.
Yeah.
They were so loose and free, and I was just like, whoa, what just happened? And he started working through me and talking to me about all this stuff, and you kind of remember like, oh my goodness, the credibility of this guy is off the charts. His skill level, his knowledge. And he said, they recruited me to come back and to do this. Said, I'm only going to be a part-time trainer. He goes, I'm actually on the management team now.
Okay.
And all that. So I only could take on 5 clients, and I'd like you to be one of them. And because again, he knows we met.
You had a history with him
and so forth. And so
did you sign up?
I did.
See?
I did. And I just went through it because the value that he showcased, again, he cared about me. I know that. We've had worked together before. I know he cares about me. I know he understands me.
Mm-hmm.
He gets me. He knows where I'm at. He knows where I'm strong. He knows where I'm weak.
Yep.
And he knows how to help me. And at the end of the day, I'm not going and buying paying for a trainer because I wanted a trainer.
Right.
I hired a trainer because I wanted Kyle.
Well, and you wanted the results that you trusted him to give you, right? And that's another point of all this of your personal branding, right? Is that showcasing your expertise through testimonials. Like for you, David, you could shout from the rooftop, "Hey, Kyle's a great trainer, and here's why." And what you just said like makes me think I'd love to work with a Kyle, right? Like that. Even I've never met the man, never had the initial thing that you just talked about, assessment, and then also just delivering results because you feel better. Right. Like you said, he notices something, he fixes it. You felt better and like, and months or years even. And it's like those results speak volumes, right? Like, so I think a lot of coaches and it's important to establish an online presence. We don't want to overlook that. But if you're just out there trying to become like the next like Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, influencer, and you're just spouting a bunch of stuff, but there's no real results that somebody can vouch for, that's going to be very short lived, right? Like, you need to not only be known, right? But you also need to be somebody who others can say, yeah, I mean, I worked with David, I worked with Chris, I worked with so and so, and they really helped me in this way. If that's credibility, right? Like that is the credibility that you need. And you can do, you can showcase those things, right? Through podcasts, through blogs, through videos, through different means and mediums. But you have to make sure that it's not just smoke and mirrors, because David, we've seen a lot of that out there too, right? Is people look really good on Instagram or Facebook Reels, or
that's just noise.
Yeah. And it's like, and then you get, and you'll buy a course, or you'll sign up for a program, and you're like, this is crap, like, or this isn't what I made it out to be. I mean, I know you've talked about different programs over the years that you've run into that way, where, maybe it was too much, you thought it would be helpful and it was way over your head. And you're like, well, this isn't where I am. This isn't what I need.
Right.
But we can be kind of obviously sucked into that, online, because we don't have those up close experiences. But if you're really trying to build your personal brand as a coach, make sure that you are collecting testimonials. Make sure you're highlighting your expertise. For me, David, sometimes when I have people that say, hey, when I'm reaching out about speaking, even, right, they'll say, do you have anything I can listen to or watch or whatever that kind of get a feel for you? And that's where, like, my podcast in particular, I've used as a thing, like, here, listen to my podcast, get a feel for who I am, what I teach, how I teach, all that, because it's very similar to how I would speak to your audience. Other people have videos, on YouTube and things, especially if you're trying to build a speaking business, that's a great thing to do, is showcase your speaking, and people can see those results. So do the things, where people can get a glimpse of you, but, and then that's
and show that you can get results.
Correct.
Because if you can do that, if you're someone that people can know, like, and trust, and they have a good feeling about you, like, this is a good person,
right?
I feel good about them.
There's good people that are incompetent,
right? And are you competent? Exactly. Yeah. Do you have the ability? And again, I was like, I knew going in yesterday that the reason I agreed to the appointment was because I liked Kyle already. I knew him. He was a good guy. I really liked him. Like, all right, I'm going to do this because I like him. Mm-hmm. And he kept asking, and I'm like, all right, fine. And then what kind of pushed it over the edge was I had that moment where I realized, whoa, if I do this myself, I'm probably going to be kind of crawling along at this rate. If I start working with Kyle, this thing's going to go way faster, way better, and I'm going to be in a whole other world if I use him as a person to help me. Yeah. And it just became, and I went home last night and I talked to Christiane about it, and it was just like, why are you even thinking about this?
Yeah, she's like, this is a no-brainer, right?
Right. You just need to do it. And so there's just that whole element. So if you have in your branding and your online presence and the videos you put out, if you're putting out communication that shows I can get you a result,
right?
Suddenly this person on the other side is envisioning a future for themselves. Whereas if I try and do this on my own, I'm going to be plodding along, struggling. But if I brought you into the picture, whoa, you're going to 10x my efforts here. And the money I spend is going to be well worth it.
Right.
Because my life is going to take off in a much better direction and much more quickly.
Yeah.
Because of it.
Well, and then this third part, I mean, this is a great segue to our third part of this, is strategies for leveraging your personal branding. One of them is just finding ways to get in front of prospective clients. And that's what Kyle did yesterday, right? He worked with you in an assessment, free assessment of where you are, just kind of seeing where things are. And he put himself out there, right? He got in front of you as the potential new client for him and did what he did. And now you're his new client. Now, you could have said no, right? Other people could have said no. But at the same time, because, like you said, because of the experience, because of the trust factor, because of all the things we've talked about so far, it ultimately became an easy yes. It was that no-brainer, decision that, you were, it's in essence, you were trying to make up probably reasons why not to do it. And your wife's like, David, why would you not? Right. Like, and so if you can have that kind of an impact on somebody where it's like, they have to find ways to choose not to work with you.
Right.
you're in a good place. And so some of that is getting in front of people live, like I mentioned, I speak, going to network events are great. But from an online space, articles and blogs or podcasts or videos or, interviews, get on somebody else's platform with podcasts or videos and be interviewed by them. Those are great places to, showcase what you know and what you can do and tell stories. I was on a podcast as a guest a few weeks ago and they were like, tell me a story about this. And so I did. And they were like, that's amazing. You're right. So it was about a former client and some results that she got. And people were just, they were like, that's a really cool story. Yeah. I mean, that's that once again, it's demonstrating results about how, you can help people. So, and then also differentiate yourself through developing and communicating that you have a unique coaching style or methodology. David, you've talked a lot about this. I know kind of online and offline, but dive into this a little bit of, creating your unique offer.
Well, think about it this way. Like, so many people are doing things so similar to what everyone else is doing, because it becomes like once you have a method that works, people start copying it. Right. They just do a copycat. They just like, oh, I'm doing that too. Well, okay. So, and then what ends up happening over the course of time is things kind of become commoditized. Think about it this way. Do you care where you get your gasoline from?
No.
Do you care where you buy your milk?
No.
Do you care where you get a bottle of water from? What's the label on it? Most of the time, those answers are all no, because those things all become commoditized. If you start doing this as a coach and you sound like everybody else,
right,
then they mentally start just putting you in the bucket of like, well, you just sound like all the other people, and this is the person that started all this, so why don't I just go with them?
Right.
Why would I go with the copycat? Why would I go with the person that just sounds like everybody else? Because I don't see why I should choose you.
Yeah.
But if you come out and you say, I have a unique approach that I have customized in my life, I'm not doing this according to how everybody else is doing it. I'm customizing it for my own life.
Right.
I'm setting this up and I'm creating my own pathway and I'm creating my own way of doing things. I have my own style. And what that tells people is you've been doing this a while. You have personal experience doing it. You know what to avoid and what to do. And you actually have knowledge and expertise that could guide me. And when I describe it, you have this, what I usually call a unique system.
Right.
And people get all hung up on that. Like, what's my unique system? Well, it doesn't need to be that complicated.
Right.
It's just a simple, unique way that when I look at Chris and I say, oh, Chris can help me, with our leadership challenges. Well, what he's really helping with is solving other problems that are caused by leadership challenges.
Right.
That's really what's going on. He's solving these other problems because there's problems in the leadership. But he has a way of approaching this and a way of doing that all of a sudden the light bulb goes off in my head and I go, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. That's why what he's saying would work. Yeah. And when they have that light bulb moment of like the style and the methods and the things that you're talking about doing, I look at it and I go, whoa, that makes sense. That would work. I can see how this would get me the result.
Yeah.
Now people are going to be much more likely to say yes to you.
Well, it reminds me, David, you and I were just even talking about the now over a decade old video of Simon Sinek's, video about Start With Why, or it wasn't even titled that in his TED Talk, but it was led to his book. But he talked about, so many times businesses, you start with what, what do we do? Or the result. And then, how it's the specifics. This is where I think the how part is that unique system. It's, for me, leadership coaching in my, is the what, right? Helping people solve leadership problems, but it's the how I do it that's different than the next coach and the next coach and the next coach. So going back to people chasing certifications, it's one thing to go and get certified. It's another thing to get trained. That we all need some level of that for sure, and different ways. But at the end of the day, if you make your brand the same brand as that certification or entity or whatever, and you do nothing different with that, you don't innovate it to be customized to you, who you are, then, then you become a commodity. But if you say, you know what, hey, I've been certified in a few different programs, but here's how I've innovated. And so kind of our last point in this is continuing to evolve and grow. I think it's okay. When you start out with something, a lot of times it's a confidence issue. Like I need to, in essence, I don't understand personal branding. I don't feel like I've got my own credibility built yet. And so sometimes you're trying to attach somebody else's credibility to attach to that so that you can get some opportunities, but you need to quickly shift away from that if you're doing it. And that was a hard lesson for me early on, right? It was, don't bank on that brand, just go be who you are and use the things that you've been trained in as tools and opportunities. But now, once again, every time I have a conversation, I can't remember last time that any other certification stuff mattered with a prospect. It was, here's our need, or what can you do to help us in this area? And if I say, well, I have some different content or I have some different tools, because I've created my own stuff now, right? I've gone from trusting or depending on somebody else's stuff to creating my own. I've written 2 books. I've created courses. I've got my own coaching, methodology and framework. That's where I've come to. But early on, I didn't start there. But continuing to evolve and grow is really important, because someday you're going to look back and go, you know what, that other stuff doesn't even matter anymore, because now I am truly,
Right.
I'm truly my unique, offering.
Right. Well, and at the end of the day, you've really said it. It's people look at you and they don't care like about your degrees and certifications. They're looking at you and saying a very simple thing. They're going, Chris, I have a problem. Can you help?
Yeah.
And do I trust you?
Yeah.
At the end, and that is like a summation of everything we've just been talking about.
Yep.
It's like, hey, I'm staring down the barrel of a problem over here that I've been trying to solve, and I'm struggling to solve it.
Yep.
And they're looking at you as like, do I believe that you're competent and can solve it?
Yeah.
Do I have confidence and faith in you to be able to help me solve this problem? And B, do I trust you? Are you a person that I like and trust and feel a sense of comfort with, that I would be like, okay, yeah, I would be okay working with you. You're a person that I don't think is going to, lead me into something and then take advantage of the situation or do a bunch of stuff that isn't good. I actually feel good about you. And at the end of the day, that has nothing to do with any letters on anyone after anyone's name.
You know what's really crazy is, David, I've seen this happen to myself, but also to others, where when you get good at something that you're doing, people start to assume that you're good at everything. and there's things that I'm like, I'll say I'm competent at, but it's not my focus. It's not my passion. It's not where I want to spend a lot of time doing. And yet people think, well, I want you to help me with that. And I'm like, that's not what I do. It's like, here's another, and I'll even try to recommend other people to them. And they'll be like, yeah, but I want you to help. And I'm like, that's not my business. That's not what I do. Like, I know about this much. They know about this much, but they want me to help them. And I have to keep fighting them off sometimes about things, because that's not my lane. But yet, because I've helped them in other ways, they think, well, you can do that. You can help me. And I'm like, so you have to kind of, that's a good thing. And it's something to watch out for, though, because you can get,
you got to know yourself.
Yeah. And know what, and be sure about what business you want to be in, because, David, you and I have both. I mean, I always think you're light years ahead of me in marketing and different things, but what I've realized is I'm light years ahead of a lot of other people on the things I've learned over the last several years. And so now they're like, well, Chris, can you help with this, this, and this? And I'm like, I know those things. I can do certain things, but that's not my business. That's not the business I'm in. So I have to say no. And people, they don't like that, because once again, they want to find people that they truly connect with, that they truly trust. And if you're a person that they trust, don't be surprised when they want you to try to help them with various things.
And I get that all the time. Like, I have people that I work with and help, and then I get calls, hey, would you do this? And I'm like, and I have to just be honest and say, no, that's not really. And it's not that, because you have to realize, and I remember years ago, I had a conversation with Todd Brown. He and I were just kind of hanging out, chatting, and we were talking about how, like, we have a lot of knowledge in about a couple different lanes of life.
Yeah.
Because people were like, "Oh man, how do you know all this?" And we kind of looked at each other because we both are in the same lane,
Right.
with online marketing and everything. We both laughed and go, "Yeah, we know an awful lot of stuff about one or two things."
Right.
I said, but don't ask me about anything else because it's going to become quickly apparent very soon. I don't know squat about that.
Well,
So
it's funny because even last night I was with a buddy. We were watching Kevin James' comedy special on
I
Amazon
saw
Prime.
that.
And he talks about that, right? Like, so he's a comedian. He's up on stage and he's talking about, he's like, I know nothing about most things. And he knew, like, what was it, the Buster Douglas
Buster
fight
Douglas. Yes.
over Mike Tyson in
Yes.
1990. He goes, I can tell you all about that because I watched this show. Like, he's like, but I go into other settings and I'm like, people think I know stuff. And he's like, I don't know. He goes, I'm as dumb as a box of rocks.
Right.
But because, think about it, right? Because he's on stage, because he's a famous actor and a comedian, because he's who he
They
is,
assume.
they assume and they connect with him, right? He, like, you watch that comedy special, you're like, that's a guy I want to hang out with. Like, he's a funny guy, like, and he's talking about real life stuff. But that doesn't make him an expert in all these other things. But I think it shows the power of personal branding. Kind of tie this all up is that's a good indicator, I think. Even if you need to say no, even if you need to protect your time and energy and attention and say no to things, it's also a good indicator that, hey, these people, this person really trusts me, respects me, believes I can help them. And if that's the case, then you're on the right path, right? Then it's about making sure you're staying in your lane, staying focused, staying clear, and saying, you know what, I know, I always just try to help people by connecting to other people. Um, and once again, sometimes they like that, sometimes they don't. But I have to be okay with that because I'm not for everybody in what I do. And for me as a people person, I've had to really, like, hold myself accountable to that and stay true to that. But folks, when you're building your personal brand and you become a person that people truly do know, like, and trust, and they want to work with you, you can really get some traction in your business. You can really become the kind of coach that truly impacts lives. And once again, it starts with who you are, your character, your values, your experiences. It's not, don't get tangled up in, I need more certifications, or I need more of this, I need more of that, or fancy websites and all this. At the end of the day, it's you. You are the brand. And this is something that we talk about with our clients. We've seen it happen over and over with our Design Launch Grow clients where it's like they're just trustworthy people that people know can help them. And now it's like, I want to work with you. And so we just help people stay the course, stay true to themselves, and help them build the business they want, not the business, like you said, that people, think you're supposed to have because they do it this way. I've got to do it this way. No, build the business of your dreams. And that's what we do at Design Launch Grow is we help you figure out what is it that you want to build, what is the style, the methodology, the format, and then how can we then help you launch that out into the marketplace and grow that business. So if that sounds like something that would be beneficial to you guys, check out designlaunchgrow.com. We'd love to have you in the program where we offer coaching, training, and a supportive community. And we would just love to help you take those next steps from where you are to where you want to go with your life and your business. So until next time, take care, God bless, and we will see you soon.
We're looping.